We continue learning independent inventory management, and this video we start to discuss the how dimension of the independent inventory management. In terms of the how dimension, we will discuss 3 tools and 3 metrics. The 3 tools of how dimension are ABC analysis, the economic order quantity, and the reorder points, respectively. And the 3 metrics are the measurements we always use to evaluate how great the inventory management is. For this video, we focus on the ABC analysis, which help managers to identify the inventories which are the most important. And for the next video, we will start to discuss the EOQ and the 3 metrics. The EOQ is the tools which help manager to decide how much inventory they should order. So it talks about the quantity. And the last video of how dimension, we will start to discuss the reorder point. This talks about the time, so it helps manager to decide when they should place an order. Now let's take a look with the ABC analysis. Just as I have mentioned, it helps manager to identify the inventories which are the most important. And basically, the ABC analysis relies on the Pareto principles. The Pareto principles is what we also call the 80-20 rules. So 80% of the inventory's costs are driven by the most important 20% SKUs. So after you use ABC analysis here, you will be able to classify the SKU into 3 different categories: the category A, category B, and category C. The category A here are the SKUs. They just takes up 20% of the total SKU, but they values 80% of the dollar usage, and the B here is around 15% values, and it around 25 to 30% of the total SKU, and the rest, the around 5% of the values, are the C category, and it takes up around 50%. So the rules I just mentioned to classify the SKUs into these different categories are the basic 80-20 rules. But if you take a look at the picture here, you will see that the category A, it only takes around like 20 or 15 to 20% of SKUs, but it values around 65 to 70. And the B, it is another 15 to 20, and it values another 25 here. And for the C, it takes up around 75% of the total SKUs. The total SKU, just if you think back to what SKU is, this is the total items you have. So it takes up 75% of the SKUs, but it only like have 10% of the value. This is the cost. So this is the dollar usage. This is how much you spend on them. When we got the inventories and the assets, this is the assets. So applying the ABC analysis, this tool, into your inventory management, if you connect all the information about what kinds of items, what kinds of SKU you have, and what is the dollar usage of them, which means the value for per unit and how many units you have, and then you can, according to all the data information, you connect and via the ABC analysis to classify your all the SKUs into these three categories and to have an idea about which SKU are the most important for you. So let's take a look at the general steps of applying ABC analysis. So the first step here, you need to get the data and build a Excel spreadsheet. You don't need to you don't have to build an Excel spreadsheet. You can write down all the data information on a paper and calculate it manually. But the Excel spreadsheet can help you to compute everything quickly. So the first step is to gather the data. So what kinds of data you need to gather? You need to know what kinds of SKUs you have and what is the values for per unit for per SKU for each SKU here, and what is the annual use, how many units you need to keep annually. So this is all the information you need to connect. And after you gather all the data information here, you will have an idea about what is the percentage for each SKU of for the total values. So you need to compute the total donor annual use for each SKU, and you will have an idea about what is the total donor annual uses. So you just sum all the donor usage here for each SKU together, and you will have a total number here. You just sum all of them, and you use the donor usage for a SKU divided by the total donor usage, then you will have a percentage for total values. So point 83 here is the percentage the SKU 1009 takes up for the total values you have for inventories. So you can calculate all the percentage for each SKU you have. Then you can move to the third step. The third step is to rank because we want to know which inventories are the most important. We want to find how many inventories takes up the 20% of the total values, which can be classified into the A category. So you need to rank the SKU according to the percentage of the total donor annual use. And then according to the number you have, after you rank them, you can classify the different SKU into the different categories. Now let's take a look with how to use the Excel to classify the SKU into different categories. So the first step, you need to connect all the data together. And after that, after you know all the numbers here, like the values for per unit, for per SKU, and the total amount for each SKU, then you will be able to calculate the total donor annual use. So we just use 3 times 600. We have 1,800 for the SKU 1009, and we use 32 times 360. We have 11,520. This is the total donor annual uses for the SKU 1017, and you can have all the donor annual use for each SKU, and then you will have an idea about what is the total values you have for all the inventories you connect here. So it's equal to, we just use a sum function here, means we sum all of the numbers together. And you will have an idea like you have 216,825 in total for the donor annual uses. So we move to the step 2. We need to calculate the percentage for donor uses for the total venues. So it equals to the donor annual uses for a SKU divided by the total donor annual uses you have for all SKU. So we have 8.83%. This is the percentage for total venues, and we can calculate all of them. So we just use a donor symbol here for the D22 cell because we always use the numbers here divided by the same cells. So we need to use the donor to stable these cells. And after that, you can scroll down them to the last SKU you have here. So this is how do we compute the percentage for the total venues. And then we can move to the third step. We need to rank. You don't need to rank manually. You can use the sort function in the Excel to help you to rank all of the information you have. So we just choose all the information here we want to have, and we find the data here, and we connect the sorts. This is the function sorts. Once you connect the sort, you will see a new windows here, and they have three choices you need to decide. The first one is what is the values you want to sort by. So what kinds of rules you follow to rank the things you want to sort. Here we choose the kernel E. The kernel E is what we use to rank the odd SKU. So this is the percentage for total values. So we just sort by the kernel E. And we sort on values. We consider the details, the numbers here, the values. Actually, you have other choices. If for another problem, if you want to classify according to the color or rank for the font color or the cell icon. So you just have different choices. But for this specific problem, we according to the values. And you can decide the order for the largest to the smallest, or for the smallest to the largest, or for a custom list. This one, because we want to know which inventories are the most important. So we want to rank them for the largest number to the smallest number. So we just choose the largest to the smallest and click OK. And you will find that all of the SKU has been ordered by the percentage for total values for the largest number to the smallest number. And then according to the percentage for total values, you will be able to have an idea what is the cumulative percentage of the total donor annual use. The cumulative is like for the first one, it equals, because we only have one SKU here, so it just equal the first one. But for the second, this cells represents the cumulative percentage of the total values. So it equals what is the total percentage values for the first two SKU. So we use what we have here plus what we have for the second one. So this is what we call the cumulative percentage for total values for the first two SKU. And you can have all of them. You can have all the cumulative total values. The third cell here represents the first three SKUs total percentage values, and this is represents the first four, the first five until the last one. So this is how we obtain the cumulative of the total values. Why we need that? because according to the ABC analysis, according to the 80-20 pre-simple, we want to find the 80% of the total values. We want to find which SKU contributes to the 80% of the total values. So according to here, you can have different rules to classify your SKU into different categories. If we consider the way the textbook uses to classify the SKU, you can just like take a look with the third SKU and the fourth SKU. So the SKU 2063, it takes up 17.277% of the total values, while the fourth one, the 1045, only takes up 5.53% of the total values. So it has a big gap here. And if we take a look with the total, the cumulative of total donor annual uses, it takes up around 60. So we think like the three SKU here takes up around 60% of the total values. So we can use the classify ways, like we mark the first three into the A categories. And then we continue considering the other SKUs here. So if we take a look, this is 61%. And if we take a look here, this is 86%. We use 86% minus 61 is around 25%. This is the rule for the B category. It takes up around 25% of the total values. So we can mark this one with the B category until the 86. So this is the B category, and the rest around like 14% are the SKU in the C category. So this is the way the textbook used to classify the inventories into the different categories. But I like to provide you another way, like because this is the 80-20 pre-simple. So actually we have an idea about the 80% of the total values should be the inventories into the A category. So we just find the 80 here. So we don't have exactly 80, but we have 82. So you can mark the A category for the first SKU to the 82 or to the 77. So it's just like basically you need to have an idea, like you want to find the inventories which are the most important. So you always want to find which inventories takes up the most of the total values. So this is another way you can use. So we just like pick up the first several SKUs with the A category. But here is another thing you need to notice, that even though we want to 80%, but we also cares about the percentage of SKUs. So if you choose too many SKUs here, actually you need to care a lot of SKUs. But this tools just like help you to identify a few SKUs which takes up the most of the total values. So you don't want to choose a lot of the SKUs. So we need to also keep that in our minds. But in general, the 80% should be a rational, a feasible way to classify. So another for the 80%, around 80% are the A category, and another like 15 should be the category B. So we can have the B until 95 because we only wanted to leave the rest of 5% of the total values for the category C. So both of ways, the ways to classify the SKUs are acceptable, but it depends on the reality, it depends on the specific problems you have. When you classify the SKU into different categories, do not forget about the percent of the SKUs. So do not involve too many SKUs in a category. It just only takes up 20%. So if you have 10 SKU, then you can just need to choose two of them into the A category, or maybe one of them. So you just like you also still need to consider about the percentage of the SKUs. So for this problem, we have around 20 SKU here. So actually 20 times 20%, you should choose like around 4 SKUs into the A categories. So for SKU here, if we consider, it's just like around 67 percentage. So it depends on what kinds of rules you focus on. If you can focus on more SKUs, you can involve more SKUs. But if you just want to analyze which SKUs are the most important, then you just choose a few. So the way the textbook use is also feasible and rational. So this is about the SKUs. And in the textbook, except for these examples, it also have a team activity. So this is the problem of the team activity, and I have already provided you the result in this same Excel file, so in the sheet 2. And this Excel file you can find under module chapter 13. So this is the result we have. So this is about the ABC analysis.